Ever felt like the world around you is trying to tell you something? Like there's a secret language just waiting to be understood? Well, you're not alone. Many of us walk through life feeling this way, and it turns out there might be more to it than we think. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of Neville Goddard and his insights on recognizing the universe's signs of manifestation. This isn't just some far-out concept, it's a practical way of looking at the world that could change everything for you. Think about it. What if every little thing that happens in your day, from the song on the radio to the random conversation you overhear, was actually a message meant just for you? Sounds pretty amazing, right? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore. And the best part? You don't need any special skills or knowledge to start seeing these signs. All you need is an open mind and a willingness to look at the world a little differently. But here's the thing. If you don't learn to spot these signs, you might be missing out on some incredible opportunities. Imagine walking past a golden ticket every single day without realizing it. That's what it's like when you're not tuned in to the universe's messages. But don't worry. By the end of this video, you'll have the tools to start recognizing these signs in your own life. Now, you might be thinking, so what if I miss a few signs? How big of a deal could it really be? Well, let me tell you, it could be huge. When we ignore or miss these signs from the universe, we're essentially turning our backs on guidance that could lead us to amazing things. It's like having a super smart, all-knowing friend who's constantly trying to give you great advice, but you've got your headphones on and can't hear a word they're saying. But it's not just about missing out on good stuff. When we're not in tune with these signs, we can end up feeling lost, stuck, or like we're just going through the motions in life. You know that feeling when you're sure you're meant for something more, but you just can't figure out what it is. That's often because you're not picking up on the clues the universe is leaving for you. The good news is, learning to spot these signs isn't some complicated process that takes years to master. It's actually pretty simple once you know what to look for, and that's exactly what we're going to cover. By the end of this video, you'll have a whole new way of looking at the world around you. You'll start to see patterns and connections where before there was just random noise. And who knows? That could be the key to unlocking a whole new chapter in your life. Now, before we dive into the nitty-gritty of recognizing signs, let's talk about the guy who really brought this idea into the spotlight, Neville Goddard. Don't worry if you've never heard of him before. Lots of people haven't. But once you learn about his ideas, you'll start seeing his influence everywhere. Neville Goddard was born in 1905 in Barbados and later moved to the United States. He wasn't some high and mighty guru or a scientist in a lab coat. He was just a regular guy who happened to stumble upon some pretty incredible insights about how the world works. Goddard spent most of his life teaching and writing about what he called the law, the idea that our imagination creates our reality. Now, I know what you're thinking. Creating reality with our imagination sounds like something out of a fantasy novel. But stick with me here, because Goddard's ideas are actually pretty down to earth when you get right down to it. He believed that the world we see around us is a reflection of our inner thoughts and beliefs. In other words, what we think and feel on the inside shows up in our outside world. This is where the idea of recognizing signs comes in. Goddard taught that the universe is constantly communicating with us, showing us reflections of our inner state. But here's the kicker. He didn't think this was some mystical woo-woo thing. He saw it as a practical, everyday tool that anyone could use to improve their life. Goddard's teachings gained a pretty big following during his lifetime, and they're still super popular today. You'll find his influence in a lot of modern self-help and spirituality books, even if they don't mention him by name. And the reason his ideas have stuck around for so long is simple. People find that they work. So, as we go through the rest of this video and talk about how to recognize signs from the universe, keep Goddard in mind. Remember, this isn't about some complicated spiritual practice. It's about opening your eyes to the ways the world around you is reflecting what's going on inside you. And once you start seeing those reflections, well, that's when things get really interesting. Let's dive into one of Neville Goddard's core ideas: the power of imagination. Now, when we talk about imagination, you might think of daydreaming or make-believe, but Goddard saw it as something much more powerful. He believed our imagination is the tool we use to shape our reality. Think about it this way: everything you see around you, buildings, cars, smartphones, all started as an idea in someone's mind. That's the power of imagination at work. But Goddard took this idea even further. He believed that our imagination doesn't just create physical things, but also our experiences and circumstances. Here's how it works, according to Goddard. When you imagine something vividly, your mind can't tell the difference between that imagined scene and reality. It's like when you have a really vivid dream. While you're in it, it feels completely real. Goddard said our imagination works the same way, even when we're awake. So, if you constantly imagine yourself succeeding, being happy, or achieving your goals, your mind starts to believe it's real. And when your mind believes something is real, it starts looking for ways to make it happen in the physical world. It's like you're giving your brain a blueprint for what to create in your life. But here's the catch: this works both ways. If you're always imagining negative things, worrying about what could go wrong, or focusing on your problems, guess what? Your mind will work just as hard to make those things real too. That's why Goddard puts so much emphasis on using our imagination in a positive way. So how does this tie into recognizing signs from the universe? Well, when you start using your imagination to focus on what you want, you'll begin to notice things in your environment that match those thoughts. It's like tuning a radio to a specific station. Suddenly you start picking up on signals you didn't notice before. Now that we understand the power of imagination, let's talk about how to spot the signs the universe is sending us. These signs are everywhere, but most of us walk right past them every day without noticing. It's not because they're hidden, it's because we're not looking for them. So what exactly are these signs? They can be anything, really. It might be a billboard with a message that seems to speak directly to you. Or maybe you keep seeing the same number everywhere you look. It could be a song that comes on the radio right when you're thinking about a specific problem. Or perhaps you have a chance encounter with someone who gives you exactly the advice you need. The key is to start paying attention to the little coincidences and strange occurrences in your day. These are often the universe's way of communicating with you. It's like the world around you is a giant mirror, reflecting back what's going on in your inner world. But here's the important part. These signs aren't always big dramatic events. In fact, they're usually small, easy to miss things. That's why it's so important to stay aware and open throughout your day. The more you look for these signs, the more you'll start to see them. And remember, these signs often come in patterns. If you keep seeing the same symbol, hearing the same phrase, or experiencing similar situations, pay attention. The universe might be trying to tell you something important. Now, you might be wondering, how do I know if something is really a sign, or if I'm just making it up? That's a great question, and it's something a lot of people struggle with. The truth is, there's no hard and fast rule. But generally, if something catches your attention in an unusual way, or if it feels meaningful to you, it's worth paying attention to. The key is to trust your intuition. If something feels like a sign to you, then it probably is. Don't worry too much about getting it right. The more you practice noticing these signs, the better you'll get at interpreting them. Now let's talk about another key concept in Goddard's teachings: The law of assumption. This idea is closely tied to the power of imagination we talked about earlier, but it takes things a step further. The law of assumption states that if you assume something is true and really believe it with all your heart, it will become true in your physical reality. It's like the old saying, fake it till you make it, but with a spiritual twist. Here's how it works. Let's say you want a new job. Instead of just hoping for it or working towards it in the usual way, the law of assumption says you should start acting and thinking as if you already have that job. You'd imagine how it feels to wake up and go to that job every day. You'd think about the satisfaction of doing work you love, the joy of interacting with your new colleagues, even the details of your new office. The trick is to make this assumption so real in your mind that you start to believe it's already true. And here's where it gets interesting. When you truly believe something, you start to act differently. You might walk with more confidence, speak more assertively, or make decisions based on this new assumed reality. And those changes in your behavior can lead to real changes in your life. But the law of assumption isn't just about positive thinking. It's about completely embodying the state of having what you want. Goddard taught that our outer world is a reflection of our inner beliefs and assumptions. So if you can change those inner assumptions, your outer world will change to match. This is where recognizing signs becomes really important. When you start assuming that what you want is already yours, you'll begin to notice signs everywhere that confirm this new reality. Maybe you'll overhear a conversation about job openings in your dream field. Or you might run into an old friend who happens to know someone hiring for exactly the position you want. These signs serve two purposes. First, they're opportunities, chances for you to take action and move closer to your goal. But they're also confirmations. They show you that your assumption is working, that the universe is responding to your new beliefs. The key is to stay consistent with your assumption, even when the physical reality hasn't caught up yet. It's like planting a seed. You don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You trust that it's developing roots underground, even if you can't see them yet. In the same way, you need to trust that your assumptions are creating change, even if you can't see the results immediately. Remember, the law of assumption isn't about ignoring reality or living in a fantasy world. It's about choosing which reality you want to experience, and then aligning your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs with that choice. When you do this consistently, you'll start to see more and more signs that your chosen reality is coming into being. Now that we've covered the theory behind Goddard's teachings, let's get into some practical techniques you can use to start recognizing signs in your own life. These are simple exercises that anyone can do, but don't let their simplicity fool you. They can be incredibly powerful when used consistently. First up is the living in the end technique. This is all about imagining yourself already having what you want. Let's say you're hoping for a promotion at work. Instead of worrying about whether you'll get it, spend a few minutes each day imagining that you've already got the promotion. Feel the satisfaction of sitting in your new office. Picture yourself leading team meetings. Imagine telling your family the good news. The key is to make it as real and vivid as possible in your mind. Another powerful technique is called revision. This involves taking events from your past that you're not happy with and reimagining them with a positive outcome. For example, if you had an argument with a friend, you'd close your eyes and replay the scene in your mind, but this time, imagine it going smoothly and ending with both of you happy. Goddard believed that this could actually change the energy around past events and influence your future. The I remember when technique is another favorite. This involves talking about your desires as if they're memories from the past. So instead of saying, I want a new car, you'd say, I remember when I was wishing for a new car, and now I love driving it every day. This helps to create the feeling that your desire has already been fulfilled. As you practice these techniques, pay attention to any signs or coincidences that pop up in your life. You might start noticing car advertisements everywhere or overhear conversations about cars. These could be signs that your desire is manifesting. When it comes to manifestation and recognizing signs, there are a few common misconceptions that can trip people up. Let's clear those up so you can avoid these pitfalls. First, many people think that manifestation is all about getting material things. While it's true that you can use these techniques to attract physical objects or circumstances, Goddard's teachings go much deeper than that. It's really about aligning your inner world with your desires and becoming the person who naturally attracts what you want. Another misconception is that once you start looking for signs, everything is a sign. While it's true that the universe is always communicating with us, not every little thing is necessarily a meaningful sign. The key is to trust your intuition. If something feels significant to you, it probably is. Some people also believe that manifestation means you don't have to take any action in the physical world. This isn't true. While Goddard emphasized the power of imagination and assumption, he never suggested ignoring practical action. The signs you receive often point towards actions you can take to move closer to your goals. Lastly, there's a common belief that if you don't see immediate results, you're doing something wrong. Remember, manifestation isn't always instant. Sometimes the universe works in mysterious ways, and what seems like a setback might actually be setting you up for something even better. To really drive home how powerful these techniques can be, let's look at some real-life examples of people who've used Goddard's teachings to transform their lives. Take Sarah, for instance. She had been stuck in a job she hated for years, dreaming of starting her own business, but never feeling brave enough to take the leap. After learning about Goddard's techniques, she started imagining herself as a successful business owner every day. Within weeks, she noticed strange coincidences happening. She kept overhearing conversations about entrepreneurship, ran into an old friend who offered to invest in her idea, and even won a small sum of money that she used as startup capital. Today, Sarah runs a thriving business and credits Goddard's teachings for giving her the push she needed. Then there's Michael, who had been single for years and was starting to lose hope of finding a partner. He began using the living in the end technique, imagining himself in a loving relationship. He focused on the feeling of being loved and appreciated rather than on finding a specific person. Soon he noticed he was becoming more confident and open in his interactions. He started receiving compliments from strangers and found himself in social situations he would have previously avoided. Within months, he met someone special, and they've been happily together ever since. These stories show that when you start paying attention to the signs around you and using Goddard's techniques, amazing things can happen. It's not about sitting back and waiting for miracles. It's about aligning your inner world with your desires and being open to the opportunities that come your way. As we wrap up our exploration of Neville Goddard's insights and the art of recognizing the universe's signs of manifestation, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned. We've discovered that our imagination is a powerful tool for shaping our reality, that the universe is constantly communicating with us through signs and synchronicities, and that by assuming the feeling of our desires already being fulfilled, we can bring them into our physical reality. Remember, this isn't about magical thinking or ignoring the practical aspects of life. It's about aligning your inner world with your desires and becoming more aware of the opportunities and guidance that surround you every day. The signs are always there. Now you have the tools to recognize and interpret them. As you go forward from here, I encourage you to start implementing these ideas in your own life. Begin with small things. Maybe use the living in the end technique for something simple you'd like to experience. Pay attention to the signs and coincidences that pop up in your day. Practice the law of assumption and notice how it affects your thoughts and actions. Most importantly, be patient with yourself. Like any skill, recognizing signs and working with the law of assumption takes practice. You might not see dramatic results overnight, but if you stick with it, you'll likely start noticing subtle shifts in your life. These small changes can snowball into major transformations over time. Remember, the universe is always speaking to you. It's sending you messages, guiding you towards your dreams and desires. All you need to do is open your eyes, open your mind, and be willing to see the signs. Your journey to a more magical, meaningful life starts now. Are you ready to see what the universe has in store for you?